Item 1 of the agenda, apologies for absence. I have 2 in the office, Councillor Mountain and Councillor Oldham. Are there any other apologies?
Bob Mill will be late. Pretty late.
Thank you. I understand Councillor Milne will be late. Yeah.
Councillor Cooper.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Leslie Butcher.
Thank you. Item 2 is the minutes of the extraordinary meeting held on the 12th of February 2019 and the meeting held on the 19th of February 2019. Are those agreed, members?
Agreed.
Thank you. Item 3, to receive declarations of interest. No? Good, thank you very much. Item 4, announcements from the chairman, leader or head of page service. The first item falling within this item on the agenda is the invitation to Malcolm Richards from Gideon. If you'd like to come to the front of the dais.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, councillors. It's a joy to be here. I'm not going to take up much of your time. I saw a copy of the agenda. It looks like a very full evening, so I should make my remarks brief. As you've just been told, the idea is us as Gideons, the local Gideons, I'll tell you about it us in a moment, to make a presentation of a specially inscribed Bible to the leader of the council. We do it around the whole of South East Essex, the Mayor of Southend, Mayor at Castle Point, and Chairman here. But in case you don't know much about Gideons, we're celebrating our 70th anniversary this year. We're a bit behind our American counterparts. They started the work at the end of the 19th century, and we caught on with it in 1949. We're that far behind them, but we're catching up slowly. And the idea is that we go around to present copies of the Bible, either the whole Bible or smaller copies to schools and other places. You may remember when you were at school getting one that looked a little bit like that. My wife got one when she was at school a good number of years ago. I won't say how many years, but it was more than 50. Oh, sorry, shouldn't have said that. And her one is a little bit battered than this. But the kids get one of these, and I said to them, if in 50 years' time it's well worn, well used, that's great. We're doing the schools in Rochford and Rayleigh. We've done Swain, Fitzwymark, Greenswald, and we've got King Edmund to do in June. So we get around. We go into a few of the local churches, telling them what we do, why we do it, and make the presentations to them and get people to become friends of the Gideons. That means they can subscribe to newsletters and things like that. But basically, tonight, it's the means of giving out to your chairman. I know it's at the end of your year of service, but it's still a good time to do it, because God's word doesn't age like we do. As I said, it started 70 years ago in England, and in case you think I was there at the very first one, I wasn't. I'm really a baby to the branch, but we were coming on the... If I turn the date up, 19th of February. So everything was all prepared for them to give it to you. But I think that was cancelled, and the guy who was going to come and do the presentation is on holiday, so I'm afraid you've got me. So on behalf of the local branch, which is South East Essex, we're based around Southend area, up as far as Rochford, Rayleigh, Canvey, Benfleet, Wickford, large area, 23 schools, the hospitals, nursing homes, hotels. That's the other main one, the big brown one you usually find in a hotel drawer, which is very useful for propping the window open if it's a a hot evening, but it's not really meant for that. But we've got one for you, sir, and we'd like you to accept it with the wishes of the local branch, and hopefully after the changes that you mentioned that will come up in next week, fortnight, we'll be back again to present your successor. So I'd like you to take this, sir.
Thank you very much.
And it's going to be presented to Chairman of Rochford District Council, Councillor David Merritt, by Gideon's UK South East Essex branch, and it quotes a verse from the Psalms. You may be aware of, "Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path." So we hope you'll treasure it and use it and find a great help to you.
Well, thank you very much. I will certainly value and treasure that.
Okay.
And in fact, I do still have
The
my
little,
New Testament, which I received from school, and is a little bit more than 50 years old, I have to say.
Well, there we are.
So
So
thank you very much
thank you very
indeed.
much indeed, sir.
Do please remain for the rest of the meeting with this.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, before proceeding with the rest of the next item, I would just like to say a few words about three members of this council who will not be seeking re-election on Thursday. Councillor John Mason, Councillor Ron Oldham, and Councillor Nick Cooper. Councillor Mason has been a member since 2000 and Councillor Oldham since 2002, during which time they have made most valued contributions both inside and outside this chamber, having served on many committees and subcommittees and represented the council on a number of outside bodies. Councillor Mason is currently Deputy Leader of the Rochford District Residents and Green Group, having previously been Leader of the Rochford District Residents Group from 2005 to 2014 and Leader of the Green and Rochford District Residents Group from 2014 to 2017. Councillor Oldham was Deputy Leader of the Liberal Democrat Group from 2003 to 2017. During their long service, I have held them both in high regard and their presence will be missed. Councillor Cooper has served as member since 2016 on various committees and in his short period as a member has served as Deputy Leader, firstly of the UKIP Group and currently Deputy Leader of the Friends of Rochford Group. I would like to take this opportunity to thank them all for the service they have respectively provided and to wish them well in whatever pursuits they choose to follow. Now, Councillor Cutmore, I understand you would also wish to say a few words.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, as you have said, we're going to miss three councillors that are not putting themselves forward for re-election. John and I first worked together, I think in 2000, I think it was, you were elected originally. Yeah. So we've been together for 19 years, if you like. Yes, we've been friends, yes, we've been enemies, but we've always, I think, done it with a little bit of a smile most of the time, and that's been good. John has made his real contribution, I think, to the District Council, certainly in planning terms, and certainly in some of the work that we've done with our business work as well. So I'd like to thank him for that and for his work as a contribution as a leader of a group and as a deputy leader. Councillor Oldham unfortunately isn't here, but I think it's worth to note that he's been deputy leader of the Liberal Democrats for quite some time and has also contributed to many of the committees that have come forward. And Councillor Cooper, much the same, Chairman. So I do endorse what you have said, and I think they will be missed by this council. But let's see what happens. While I have the stage, can I say good luck to all those that are taking part in the elections coming up. We might see some different faces coming forward, and then we might see the same faces coming forward. But that's in the hands of the electorate, not us. So I think it's less than 36 hours now, so let's wait and see what happens. But thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. Does anybody else put? Councillor Stanley.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, councillors, ladies and gentlemen. the last meeting of the council before our local elections. I would like to say a big thank you to Councillor John Mason for his help, advice and friendship. And on behalf of the Lib Dems, his voice and his presence will be missed in the chamber, and we wish him all the best on his retirement from the council. Also for Ron Oldham, I could turn around and say he's a funny old dog, but he is, and he knows it, and he's a lovely man. With his, he's always welcoming, and he's always good advice to us as young Liberal Democrats in where we are at the moment. And good luck to him, and good luck to Nick Cooper as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hoy.
Thank you, Chairman. It might seem strange, but I came unprepared to say anything today because John strictly forbade me from saying anything on Saturday. So a few people have actually said you should say something, and I think they are right, and I'm going to disobey his instructions as my former leader, or glorious leader, as we used to call him. I came to this council in 2010, very raw, very inexperienced and very unknowledgeable, as we all are when we become councillors. And I think Chris Black helped me a great deal. But sitting next to Councillor Mason taught me even more, especially a few swear words which I wasn't sure I was allowed to know, which he used to whisper into my ear now and then to keep me awake. I will keep this brief, but over the years he's contributed a lot to this council, as we all know, with his technical expertise on planning and on finance from his days in the city. I've learnt an awful lot from him. I will miss him greatly in this chamber, but I will continue to see him outside as a friend, and I'd like to thank him for everything he's done over the years. I can't pass without saying a word about Ron, Councillor Oaten, because again he was very welcoming, along with all the Lib Dems when I was first elected, with advice. Although over the years he may have attended less, I still see him quite regularly at Peggotty's, and I'm sure I will continue to do so. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Hookway.
Thank you, Chairman. I think there's been a lot of very warm and kind and welcoming words for the councillors that are not going to be in this chamber in next week. But I'd just like to say my piece, and I'll be very brief. Councillor Cooper is someone who I've met through the process of the politics of the council, but he's someone who's a character who I've come to appreciate, and I look at him as a friend. Likewise, Councillor Mason too, because different character, but he's provided me with a lot of help and assistance with information and with matters to do with the council and how things operate. Ron, I don't know as well, but he's managed to pass on a few kind words whispered in my ear in various different meetings, most of which have been very amusing. They will all be sadly missed, and we need characters like that in this council, and hopefully we will find some new ones shortly. Thank you.
Councillor Mr Mason.
Chairman, I'm deeply touched, and I have to say there's quite a few people in the district and in this council who think I've been touched for years, but nevertheless it is an emotional time, this final council. This is the third time I've actually retired, not from the council but other organisations and other roles, from banking, from Greenswood Academy, and now from the council. I've been lucky in that at almost every retirement I've chosen my time. I've chosen my time myself with my colleagues, my wife, and this is a plan which I intended to follow. I have been incredibly honoured by residents to have elected me for so many successive occasions. Clearly they have trusted me, and I hope that I've carried out their wishes as well as anybody could. I would also like to thank the officers of the council. Not all of the officers of the council are still with the council, but I can assure you that all of their faces and advice, you know, flash before my eyes when I even come to think about those who have helped me along the way. They've helped because there is stuff I don't know. They've helped because the stuff I needed urgently, the stuff that residents needed, and they've given it to me. And the council has come up trumps. It came up trumps through Sean in the last few days, and thank you. The very last issue of complaint, I hope, that came from residents, at least I can respond to them. The council does care about it. It does care about what it's going to do about it, and that's the way the council has related to its residents throughout the term I've been on the council, and I hope that continues. I would just like to say also thank you to all the members who have listened to me. Some of you would have listened to me with agreement, some of you would have listened to me with strong disagreement, but nevertheless this has been a cordial chamber, as Terry says. We may disagree on issues of policy, on issues of determination and the way forward, but nevertheless we've been able to conduct ourselves appropriately, and outside the chamber it's all forgotten. And that's something that I learnt from Peter Webster, who I sat next to for the first 2 or 3 years of my term on the council, and believe me, that was far more colourful than I'm sorry, Michael, I could ever be. He was truly, truly a remarkable man, and I took a great deal from him and Mavis. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for listening, and thank you for your kind thoughts.
Thank you. Well, now I'm delighted to be able to announce that under item 5 of the agenda that we are to receive a presentation from the Rochford District Youth Council. And I'm delighted to welcome them to the chamber this evening and to this meeting, and perhaps I can invite them to come up and give us their presentation.
Good evening. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule to meet with us. Who are we? We are the Rochford District Youth Council. Our members include me, Neve as Chair, Rachel, our Vice Chair, Georgia, our Press and Media Officer, Chloe, our Secretary, and Lily May, our Treasurer. As the Rochford District Youth Council, we would like to improve the community, have a positive impact on people's lives with our project, and get rid of the negative stereotypes around teenagers.
We started our first few meetings getting to know each other as we believed this was most important for an effective working environment. Then we looked around and searched for activities and clubs for teenagers to attend and realised there isn't actually much for adolescents in the local area. We gave a survey out to a few schools which helped us understand what young people believed were the main problems facing our society that needed to be tackled. We believe this survey was important so that not only our voice can be heard, but so we actively represent local youth. Using the results of this survey, we discovered that on average the schools we surveyed were most concerned about mental health, and this started us on our first campaign as a youth council.
Good evening, I'm Georgia and I'm going to be talking to you about our mental health campaign and why we chose this topic. Every 90 minutes in the UK, a life is lost to suicide. It doesn't discriminate, touching the lives of people in every corner of society, from the homeless and unemployed to builders and doctors to reality stars and footballers. It's the biggest killer of people under the age of 35, more deadly than car crashes and cancer. Yet it's rarely spoken of, a taboo that threatens to continue its deadly rampage unless we all stop and take notice now. Furthermore, mental health came back our most popular response in our school surveys we conducted in the early stages. It beat knife crime, CSE and bullying, meaning we must listen and take action as a youth council. We then created a brief plan to see how we would approach our campaign and what we wanted to achieve. We engaged with the mental health service provider and the public health lead to agree actions for the Castle Point and Rochford Health and Wellbeing Strategy, which you can see here on the slide on the right. And finally, we have generated together as the Youth Council new, original and exciting ideas. These are ideas such as renting out a premises for young people to go to and do activities such as table tennis, and a safe place for young people to go to with their friends, and mental health trained sports coaches will be present. We will also like to develop our social media pages further, creating videos raising awareness about mental health and websites to help young people. We believe through our hard work and support from the external community, working together we will achieve great things that will have an amazing and positive impact on people's lives.
We will continue to focus and work on our mental health campaign, trying to reach as many young people across the district and impact real change. We want to increase the visibility of the Youth Council by getting out into the community, attending events and sharing our work. We want to increase our membership to ensure we have a strong voice and to empower young people.
Thank you for taking your time to listen to us and our ideas today. We really appreciate it. You can help us to raise our profile across the district by supporting our campaigns and future plans. You can sign up for email alerts at the email on the slide, or follow us on Twitter and Instagram, like and share our posts. Do you have any questions?
Councillor Mrs McPherson.
Thank you, Chairman. Excellent. And can I just say, lovely to see a bit of girl power going on up there. Just out of interest, I've got a friend who actually was one of the original Rochford Youth Council. Her name's Fiona Malpas. She has been a champion for mental health for many years. She actually received an award from Stephen Fry, and she's done a few pictures and films with ITV, and there is another channel. But she's also now a forensic psychologist with Westminster University. That goes to show how long ago. I'd love to tie you in with her. And strangely, she gave me some facts today because they've been putting out some news. And there's actually an 8% increase on suicides in under 25s. So absolutely anything we can do to help you, we're here to help you. Brilliant. Well done, girls.
Are there any other questions? Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chairman. As you might know, we've got an election on Thursday, and a lot of people have been out campaigning, and one of the big issues that's come across is antisocial behaviour, and apparently it's all down to the youth of today. I wonder what you have to say about that, please.
Well, in my opinion, I believe that it may be down to technology and how it has advanced, as it has given us many ways of communicating through different forms, and we now have many different ways of communicating with different people from all over. So we may seem antisocial, but we may be talking to people all over the world.
Furthermore, I also believe...
Oh, sorry. I thought I hadn't finished. Carry on.
Sorry. Furthermore, I believe that young people do have the ability to become an amazing, great adults and to develop their life into an amazing career, but I believe they need this support to do this. They need to grow and have knowledge from the elderly and older people. So therefore, we believe that we need to be taught in the right way to be able to do this. And I believe that schools need to teach younger people how to behave and how to do things, and also parents, I believe, plays a huge part, as you are with them for over half of your day, every day of your life, every year.
Councillor Webb.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to thank the Youth Council for joining us tonight and for giving us an excellent presentation. I thought it was important that as a council we continue to hear the voice of young people, And I'd just like to ask the Youth Council, how else would you like to get involved in the council and to contribute to the work that we try and do across the district?
Well, in my opinion, I believe that we should be able to help with some decision making with the youths and about healthy eating and bits like that, as it will affect us in the future as to what decisions are being made now. And it will also show that you have you are able to communicate with the youth and take in their opinions.
Councillor Reeves.
Thank you, Chair. Well done. I think we've actually seen tonight in the chamber here the potential that there is in the youth here. And I hope that this is the first of many presentations that you give to this council. And I wish you every bit of luck going forward on this. I would like to say a big thank you. I've been following this group right from the outset this time round. And Kelly and Tracy have put in a huge amount of effort to this, and they should be part of the thanks for that. But I'd also like to take the opportunity to ask each of us to actually step up to the platform here, because you see they're only a small group. They need encouragement. We individually can encourage them, but we can also encourage those around who we know, sons, daughters, grandkids, friends around who've got kids who are in this young adult age who can actually influence this area for good. You know, we need a bit of a change from the old duffers that we've got in here sometimes. These people are bringing something fresh to the council here, and they should be commended for that. And I'd like to thank you for actually stepping forward. I know it's a bit of a thing these days to be getting involved in politics, but you're actually bringing something fresh to us, and I thank you for that. Sorry, it's not a question, but I believe that needed to be said. Thank you, Chair.
Well said. Councillor Hookway.
Thank you, Chairman. Very well presented. And the one thing that I would say to you is that I hope that this is not going to be the only time that you come and visit the council chamber. These are public meetings and they're open to the public. And that also means some of the other meetings the council has as well. So if there is a matter for which you have a general interest or something very specific that you want to find out more information about, please come along to council meetings. They are open to you.
Thank you. Councillor Cutmore.
Thank you, Chairman. Through you, may I say thank you very much for your presentation. One thing I think that we've always tried to do as a council is to make a difference. And I think the work that you're doing is actually going to make a difference to the youth of today and as they get older to those that follow. But the question I would ask you, if I may, is we're all councillors now. Do you see yourselves as the councillors of tomorrow?
So I've got this one. I think certainly for youth, this is the right track to be on to get the experience before getting up with you lot. This is quite a scary thing. But yeah, this is something that we are all interested in, which is why we are here. And definitely this is somewhere we could see ourselves, otherwise we wouldn't be here.
Councillor Lucas-Gill.
Thank you, Chairman. Just wondering if it might be an idea if some of these young ladies would care to shadow some of our councillors or the portfolio holders to see what they do outside of the council meetings.
Can I answer that one? I think that's certainly an opportunity that I'd love to discuss with the Youth Council. But there's such a passionate group of young people. At the moment, they're so focused on this campaign. They meet for just a few hours every other week. So that invitation would be graciously accepted once we've got this campaign going and we've actually made this a success. And it's certainly something we'd love to see on the agenda, but certainly not an opportunity that we think that we could take up in the immediate instance, because you girls, you're busy girls at the moment. And we do need to just be a little bit more aware that as young people they have other things going on, including imminent exams.
And I think perhaps that's something that might be discussed at a future date.
Absolutely.
And in
We'd
more
love to get,
detail.
you know, any invitations, any opportunities, obviously send them through the email. Contact myself directly as the officer that supports these fantastic young ladies. If we could just make sure that any requests or any opportunities just come through one central avenue, and I'm sure the girls would graciously consider it and give a response.
Thank you very much. Councillor Stanley.
Thank you, Chairman. It's nice to see girl power up there, I must admit. But there is also, I think it's 36% of suicides for males, young males, under 36 years of age. The pressure's on young people, as we already know. And have you got any young males on your committee, or will you have any young males on your committee in the future?
We haven't as yet, but we would like to advertise out to obviously males as well to make it a wider council. We wouldn't just like females, that's not what we intended to do. We would also like males, then we can get different opinions from both sides, which would be much more helpful, because obviously we believe from different genders there is obviously different opinions. And through our campaign we'll advertise further, and we do believe boys will start to join our campaign as we have a few more join in our next meeting.
Councillor Mrs Mason.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I'm going to put this on that louder voice. We were obviously aware as councillors about the activities that you're undertaking. We get a lot of information given to us, as I'm sure you'll appreciate. But your presentation tonight has been exceptionally informative, it's been interesting, and it's been impressive. And you ought to be very proud of yourselves for doing that. The one thing I would ask is, we get, as councillors, we get an inordinate amount of communications. And most of it is from a general source, which means we tend to classify it by where it's come from. If you have anything that you want help with while you're undertaking this, if you write to us, please write individually with your names rather than as a group. I'm not saying don't say Rochford Roof Council, but that way we will pick it up much quicker, much easier. But anything we can do to assist you, it doesn't matter how little it is, just ask. Because if you don't ask, we won't know that you need that help. So please, that's my one request of you, but do be very proud of what you've achieved so far. Thank you. And keep up the good work.
I see no other hands raised. Thank you very much. I'm sure it's been quite an ordeal for you standing up there and talking to us, and you've done extremely well. I've got news for you. It gets pretty scary sitting up here, so but thank you so much. You're more than welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, although I think you're being collected
We
at...
are going to politely exit. I do have parents coming to collect some of these young people. Councillor Rees, Rachel will be waiting upstairs for you even at 5. We thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. It's been a pleasure. Okay, well, we now move to item 6, public questions and member questions on notice. There's none. Item 7, business from the last council meeting. There's none. Item 8, to note the minutes of executive and committee meetings held between the period 2nd February to 19th April 2019 as listed. Those noted, members? And we now move on to item 9, to consider any reports from the executive and committees to council. 9.1, report of the review committee. Councillor Burton, would you like to introduce that and present that?
Thank you, Chairman. Members will be aware that a project team formed of members of the review committee have been undertaking the rather extensive and at times challenging task of reviewing the Constitution, which was considered to be rather overdue. With the assistance and guidance of Paul Gowers and Angela Law, this latest review and the subsequent amendments that are proposed within this report is the fourth and final section of the review. I would personally like to thank both members of the project team, along with Paul and Angela, for their patience and determination to complete the review, which, as I have already mentioned, was a rather lengthy and detailed process. The latest proposed changes have been considered and agreed by members of the review committee, and we would ask that these changes are adopted by full council this evening. If any members have any questions or queries, Angela Law, myself, or the chairman of the working party, I believe, would be happy to address them.
Do you want to make any presentation now? No? Okay. Councillor Steptoe.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I just want to raise one small item. I think it's probably just a typo. On page 9.1.66, item 9D. I'll give everybody a chance to find it. Okay, the second line from the end, starting working groups will not meet in public. I think after that, at that point there should be another not have public agendas. Can officers confirm that can be put in?
That would seem... members are happy with that?
Agreed.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you. Did you indicate, Councillor Hoy?
Yes,
Yes. I thought you did.
Thank you, Chairman. Obviously, I was on the review committee, which this went through. I'm a bit disappointed to see that some of the corrections, or one of the corrections at least, that I raised has not been corrected. So I'm just concerned that other corrections may not have also been corrected, because I know there were a few raised at the time, one of which I can't remember, which I know Paul Gowers was aware of. So I'm looking at the chairman of the review committee as well. The one in particular that's sprung out, and I reread this again for about the fourth time, so apologies if I keep getting it wrong, is there's a reference, and I've turned over, sorry, I found it again, to refer to Councillor Steptoe's point, so I lost my place for a minute. On page 9.1.20, towards the top of page F, there's a reference to by way of personal explanation, see paragraph 15.3. This was raised at the review committee, so I understood these corrections were going to be made prior to today. Obviously, 15.3 refers to a seconder's speech, which is not personal explanation. Personal explanation is 15.13. So I'm just a bit concerned there might be other errors like that within the Constitution still, which haven't been corrected. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, I understand that what is indeed a typographical error and should be 0.13. So again, we will amend that.
Will that, sorry, Chairman, will that be the same? Will the review committee minutes be reviewed by Angela Law to make sure that all of those corrections are in place then, if they're not in place on this document which we're approving tonight?
And I trust members are happy for items which are simply typographical errors for them to be made as they go through.
Agreed.
Is that agreed? Councillor Hoy?
Surely, per our Constitution, they should come back to this committee. There's no definition of minor, as I understand it. Thank you.
Well, if I should say minor and obvious. You're not happy with that, Councillor Mrs Mason?
Mr Chairman, you'll probably be unaware that the working party spent, I think, 3 or 4 sessions trying to ascertain a definition of minor for the Constitution. It was deemed by the legal officer not to be possible.
Fair enough.
Therefore, I share the other members' concern that any alterations should come through full council ultimately to be approved. We have set up under the working group, I'm sure the chairman will forgive me for answering on his behalf, but we have set up where there's a technical alteration, perhaps in a name, not minor because we can't call it minor because we can't define it, that those alterations for expediency will go first to the Standards Committee to check that there's no errors, which of course then in full time go through to full council to be adopted. This is the only body that can approve any alteration to the Constitution. The other reasoning for that was that I'm sure we've all got the Constitution and it's got dates all over the place. You've got different dates on the same pages, it's confusing. And what has been determined to facilitate changes in the future is that once it's approved through full council, obviously the pages will be reprinted with that date on, that full council date, so that in future we can trace back the changes to the Constitution and there won't be errors that have been made in the past perpetuated. So I'm sorry for such a lengthy explanation, but I hope that clarifies the matter for you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Yes, Chairman, just for clarity, are members asking me to bring back this report to the next council meeting and have this approved at next council meeting once it's all been checked through? Chairman? Yes.
That's what you're asking, yeah?
Yes.
That'd be the best thing, would it?
Sorry?
Would that be the best thing?
Yes.
Okay, so is that agreed, members?
Agreed.
Okay, so that will be deferred to the next council meeting. Yeah. Right, we move on then to item 9.2. Councillor Burton.
Thank you, Chairman. Hopefully members will have had a chance to have a look at the Review Committee annual report. The Review Committee continues to look at and discuss a wide range of topics, as members can see. Slightly disappointing that no items came before the committee this year that were suggested by members of the public, as have done in previous years, and perhaps the council would take note of this and look to raise awareness of this ongoing invitation to our residents and businesses during the next municipal year. As the current chairman of the Review Committee, I would personally like to thank all the members of the Review Committee for their continued support and hard work over the past 12 months, in particular to Councillor Sperring in his role as Vice Chairman, and also to both Paul Gowers and Michelle Power for their continued assistance and input. And I hope that the full council will accept the annual report.
Thank you, Councillor Burton. The recommendation, or does anybody have any questions? Councillor Cutmore.
Not a recommendation, Chairman, but just to thank the Chairman of the committee and all the committee members for the work that they've done. I think we've seen some of that work within the Constitution that's come forward. A very complicated document that clearly is worthy of some real work, and I know some real work was done on that. And I thank everybody who actually contributed to that. But I think we need to acknowledge the work of the Review Committee for this year and thank them all. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. So in the absence of any other members wishing to speak, the recommendation that it is proposed that Council resolves to receive the annual report as amended. Is that agreed, members? Agreed. Thank you. Item 9.3. I think Councillor Cutmore.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, this became in front of the executive as we had had to have a meeting for the Appointments Committee as there was a vacancy that really needed filling urgently. And this committee actually met on Monday. I appreciate that this is slightly retrospective, but it had to happen that way because really we had to fill the vacancy. But I'm sure if there are any questions, members will ask them. But I do agree with the recommendation. Thank you, Chairman.
Any questions, members? Councillor Hoy.
Sorry, Councillor. Chairman, sorry. I have engaged to some extent with the Managing Director on this, although my last email goes unanswered still. I was aware of this committee because I was invited to sit on this committee on Monday. I take it from what Councillor Cutmore said that the committee has actually met as membership based on 1.3. My problems with this stem from the fact that the committee itself is unconstitutional. It's been appointed unconstitutionally, and furthermore it's not pro rata. The only body which can appoint the Chief Officer's Appointments Committee is full council. The executive are unable to do so. It's not within the constitution to allow them to do that. In addition, this committee has been based on membership of the previous municipal year, and it's pro rata based on that municipal year, not pro rata based on the membership of this council as it was on the 29th of April, or the previous full council even. As you're aware, I went into extensive arguments with Mr Bostock when he was here about pro rata rules and how we disagreed with them. I don't see how this council can now go back and agree the pro rata rules as I said they should be, rather than how they were determined at the last full council which they were determined at. It is not pro rata. It's not possible for this committee to exist on this basis. And based on that, I don't see how any decision made by that committee can be legal. I hesitate to use the words in front of at least two solicitors I'm aware of. I'm not sure if any other members are solicitors, but I was always taught about ultra vires outside their power, which I believe is the case. I could be corrected, but that's my view. Therefore, I cannot support this motion. I think it is not a legally constituted committee.
Thank you. Bear with me one moment.
Chairman, as I understand it, the committee is pro rata. The decision of the Chief Appointments Committee is legal. It's been through a robust process. This council is only asking to constitute the committee and not make comments on the decision of that Chief Appointments Committee.
Councillor Mrs Mason.
The only people that have power to appoint a full committee of the council is the council. Yet this committee has been set up, has apparently met without any approval. I don't believe that it is pro rata if you look at the other situations. Certainly by determining who sits on that committee, that is wrong. Constitutionally, it is up to the groups to nominate members to sit on committees. It is not up to the council to determine. You do not have that right. Therefore, any meeting that's been held with that sort of determination, by predetermining who people, which groups, members of which groups will sit on that committee, is wrong. It's flawed. And therefore any decision that's made is flawed. And I must admit, I can't understand the urgency. They met yesterday. Today is full council. What's wrong with meeting tomorrow? What was wrong with 2 days? What made it so urgent that the executive had to make this decision without, as far as I'm concerned, proper power, proper authority, or due regard to the normal process of the council? I'm sorry, but I do not think that we should accept any decision made, and I certainly won't be supporting this report. It is fundamentally flawed. Thank you.
I think, as Mrs Mason, the The only point I would make is that, as I understand it, you are questioning the decision having been made yesterday, whereas this particular recommendation is merely to constitute the committee.
Right. Mr. Chairman, for clarity, this recommendation is wrong in itself because the council is trying to determine which members of the groups can attend a committee. It is not within their power. It is up to the group leaders to determine which of their members serve on which committees. Therefore, this is flawed in itself. Any decision, I know you don't want to discuss the decision yesterday, but I'm hoping it won't be enacted because I think it was fundamentally wrong.
But that's a different matter.
But it is a different, it stems from this failure, the failure of the council to put this committee in place last May. It stems from the failure to do something in a timely fashion. But this recommendation is wrong because you cannot name the members and say that they will be part of that group. And that is what happened. You have actually, I mean, if there was a meeting yesterday, were all members invited? Or was it secret?
Councillor Mr Hoy.
Thank you. Just to clarify, because I think there seems to be a little bit of confusion, not on our side, I must say. The committee which met yesterday, which has been confirmed by Councillor Cutmore, was based on the committee membership as shown here. That committee membership is not legal. That committee was not legal by law and by our constitution. Thank you.
Chairman, the committee membership, I believe, in the recommendation was, although those names in 1.3 refer to specific councillors, I believe the recommendation in 2.1 was referring to the pro rata rules with regards to the parties. I understand from the officers that all group leaders were approached with regards to who would like to attend this, who would they like to put forward on this committee. We are here to constitute this committee. The decision itself, made by the Chief Appointments Committee, went through a robust process, and it was not flawed. It was a fair process, and a decision has been made by that committee.
Councillor Mr Hoy.
Thank you, Chairman. I must clarify that I was not approached as group leader to see which members would be on this committee. I was sent correspondence stating who was on that committee by a decision made by the executive earlier this month. At no point was it suggested that we had any input into this. On the rules, based on the last time that there was a change of party and group membership, which I think was when Councillor FD became a Conservative, the pro rata rules meant this committee now is not pro rata, based on the rules discussed at that time, which I extensively discussed with Mr Bostock. Thank you.
Councillor Hookway.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to ask a question of our legal officer in regard to this matter. Prior to the meeting that took place yesterday, when was the last time that this committee met to make a decision about an appointment?
2017.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Was that prior to the reconstitution of the council? As in the last time the council was reconstituted with the new pro rata rules?
Sorry, Chairman, there was no new pro rata rules. The pro rata rules are the pro rata rules. If the member can clarify the question, please.
In relation to the change of the council from the elections and any other changes from members who may have changed their political allegiance, shall we say, I think that this has already been brought up, that there was a meeting where this was discussed about the situation about the pro rata situation. So had this committee met since then, or was that you talking about the last time that it met prior to that situation?
Sorry, Councillor Hooker, could you just repeat that question one more time?
Thank you. I try and be a little bit clearer. You stated that the committee last time it met was in 2017. Was that prior to the reconstitution of the council after last year's elections, or was that after that? Because what is being stated by other councillors is that if the membership of that committee is just carried over, we haven't had the opportunity to, as leaders of our groups, to change or alter the membership of that committee to reflect the new situation. Thank you.
It was 2017, so it was before the last election.
So, Chairman, may I give a preset an explanation of what I mean?
Well, let's do you want to respond on that?
Well, Chairman, all I can say is that as far as I'm aware, the last meeting of the Chief Officer Appointments panel was 2017. I think it was towards the end of 2017. I can't recall the exact date, but that was prior to the last election in 2018.
Councillor Stanley.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I did read the notice of the executive, but I wasn't contacted as to what member of the party was going to be on that executive. So I wasn't actually contacted. Thank you.
Councillor Burton.
Thank you, Chairman. I've heard what other councillors have had to say this evening, and I tend to agree with Councillor Mrs Mason and Councillor Mr Hoy. I think it's clear that there's an issue here, and I think the council, by having the meeting yesterday, have overstepped the mark, if we put it that way. However, I don't actually have a huge issue with the recommendation that's being made. It is asking us whether or not we agree for a committee to be convened on the basis of previous membership, and I think we do have to take a common sense approach as well. And I don't think that whether the meeting was held yesterday or tomorrow, the decision from that meeting would be the same. I take on board what Councillor Mrs Mason and Councillor Hoy are saying, and I do agree with them. But at the same time, I think we do have to look at this recommendation this evening with a view to that. And I think there are two slightly separate issues, although I do agree with Councillor Mrs Mason and Councillor Hoy. But I think we do need to have a bit of a common sense approach as well as to why that happened.
Thank you. Councillor Mr Mason.
Thank you, Chairman. I've been listening carefully. I hope everybody else has. I can't support the recommendation that has emanated from the executive because constitutionally the executive does not have the power to do that. And therefore, if it doesn't have the power to do that, I can't possibly, and nor can this council, accept the recommendation. What we're doing, or what the council is proposing to do through the executive, is just roll in the face of the constitution and ignore it for convenience. I do not know why there is any great urgency in this matter that could not have been stayed for a period of 24 hours for this council, as it stands here, here today, to actually agree to a proposal for a new Chief Appointments Committee as constituted, and I'll use that word properly, as constituted in accordance with the pro rata rules. It is not, whatever way you look at it, but I return to the point. The point is the executive does not, under any constitution, have the power to do this. If it doesn't have the power to do it, this council cannot endorse it, accept it, pass it. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Hoy.
Thank you,
Actually,
Chairman.
if I may, because you have had
I
quite
will
a
be
few
very brief.
opportunities.
All I'm
Very
going to say
briefly.
is, as ever, Councillor Mr Mason puts it much more eloquently than I could.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chairman. I've listened to the argument that's been put by Councillor Mason and Councillor Hoy, and I understand the gist of what they're saying. But equally, I've listened to our experienced professional officer who has given formal professional advice to the council, and that is that the decision is in order. So therefore, I would like to move the recommendation as printed on 2.1. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm sorry. Yes, please do.
Chairman, I have the agenda of the executive that met on the 3rd of April, and I'll read some words from it, if I may. And this is what came before the executive. There are no names on here, or groups, or whatever. It says, decision being recommended that a Chief Officer Appointments Committee be constituted for the current municipal year, comprising the same membership as the previous municipal year, to support the recruitment of the vacant Assistant Director post, pending confirmation by full council. That's what it says. Reason for the recommendation: it was not anticipated that a Chief Officer Appointments Committee would need to convene during the current municipal year. Therefore, it was not constituted at annual council in 2018. The recent departure of 2 of the Assistant Directors and the Head of Finance led to a restructure of the leadership team. There is now a vacancy for an Assistant Director, Resources. In order to provide leadership and resilience in this service area, it is recommended that an appointment be made as soon as possible before the end of the municipal year. That was the recommendation that came before the Executive Chairman, and we've taken legal advice from our legal officer on that. Thank you.
On that basis, I think we've. I mean, I think everybody's had it. Just very briefly, Councillor Mason.
You stated from the chair that the group leaders have been asked. 2 group leaders have said they haven't.
Don't think I said anything.
I'd like some clarity on that. That is a real concern, that we can be told that something has been done when apparently it hasn't been done. So some clarity, please. Were the group leaders asked to appoint members or not? The group leaders themselves say not.
Chairman, that was my understanding. I can say no more than that.
I'm sorry, this is an important situation. We need to be clearer.
Chairman, I don't think it's appropriate for me to discuss, you know, the information I've been given,
This chamber
named by name
to
to named officers.
Councillor Hookway. I think I'm going to bring the discussion to a halt very soon.
I'll be very brief.
Please.
Just for clarity.
We have a motion
yeah.
on the floor.
Just for clarity, I was
have a
not directly contacted in relation to this matter.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor. All those in favour? Numbers all right?
Yes, that's fine.
Thank you.
Councillor Burton. Councillor Carter. Councillor Cutmore.
For.
Councillor Cannell. Councillor Dray.
For.
Councillor FD. Councillor Eaves.
Against.
Councillor Mrs Gooding. Councillor Griffin.
In favour.
Councillor Hazelwood. Councillor Hookway.
Against.
Councillor Mrs Hoy. Councillor Hoy.
Against.
Councillor Hudson.
For.
Councillor Ioannou. Councillor Lucas Gill.
For.
Councillor Mrs Lumley. Councillor Mrs Mason.
Against.
Councillor Mason.
Against.
Councillor Mrs Macpherson.
Just to say this recorded vote is on what is presented before us. 4.
Councillor Merrick.
For.
Councillor Milne.
For.
Councillor Mrs Pavlin. Councillor Mrs Rowe. Councillor Mrs Shaw. Councillor Shaw. Councillor Smith.
For.
Councillor Sperring.
For.
Councillor Stanley.
Against.
Councillor Steptoe.
For.
Councillor Ward.
For.
Councillor Webb.
For.
Councillor Mrs Weston.
4.
Councillor Williams. Councillor Wilson.
Against.
So read out the numbers. Yep.
Chairman, we have 25 for, 9 against and 1 abstention. The resolution on 2.1 is therefore passed.
Please, Chairman. As this committee hasn't been constituted now, because the committees must be constituted by agreement of full council in accordance with the wishes of each of the groups. That's clearly not the case based on the vote, so I don't see how the committee can now be legally constituted.
Thank you, Councillor Hoy. The resolution has been passed.
Chairman, point of order. Well, actually, it's personal clarification, actually. But I intend as a resident, as soon as the 4th of May is passed, I believe I'm still a councillor 2 days after the election, which is very strange, but there we are. I will be taking this matter to the local government ombudsman for maladministration, which it is, clearly, according to our constitution. Thank you.
Gill? Item 10, a report on urgent decisions. There is none. Item 11, the report of the leader on the work of the executive. Councillor Cutmore. Have I missed something? Yeah. That's what I just said. It's item 11, report on the leader of the...
Chairman, this is the 5th and final ordinary council meeting of the 2018-19 municipal year, and I'd like to welcome all members. Since the meeting on the 19th of February, the executive has met once, during which considerations included the noting of projects programme management office dashboard, which forms part of the assurance work for Gold, Silver and Bronze project. A recommendation to Council the Chief Officer Appointments Committee be constituted for the current municipal year, comprising the same membership as the previous municipal year, to support the recruitment of the vacant Assistant Director post. A resolution that the Council's Materials Recovery Facilities contract with Viridor be extended for a further 18 months. Other matters that my executive colleagues and I have dealt with include approving the timetable of meetings for the 2019-20 municipal year, agreeing the implementation of non-means testing pertaining to disabled facilities grants for works up to the value of £5,000 and Essex Occupational Therapist in housing referrals, agreement to a revised corporate debt and write-off policy for Rochford District Council, a decision that a formal response to Brentwood Borough Council's consultation on its local plan pre-submission draft regulation 19 be submitted, and a decision that the formal responses to Southend Borough Council's and Thurrock Borough Council's consultation on their local plan issues and options regulation 18 be submitted. As always, Chairman, I would be happy to take any questions from members in respect of the work of the Executive, and I'm sure my Executive colleagues will be happy to contribute where appropriate. Thank you, Chairman.
Any questions, members?
Point of order, please, Chairman. Sorry, Chairman. I understand that we've missed item 10, report on urgent decisions.
No, I did say report on urgent decisions. There is none. I do beg your pardon. I stand corrected. Thank you, Councillor Mrs Weston. If I could just then refer back to item 10, report on urgent decisions. This is to be noted. Is that noted, members? Noted. Thank you. My apologies. Item 12, motions on notice. Councillor Mrs Mason.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Well, I will stand, but I'm not even sure that we've skipped over item 11. The leader said that he'd take questions. We then went back to item 10.
No, I asked if there were any questions and there weren't any.
You didn't give us a chance. We were interrupted by the error of item 10. There are questions.
So you have a question. Very well. Please proceed.
Thank you. I can stand there. Thank you. Yes, the work of the executive that held a meeting. I'm sorry, I'm going over old ground. On the 29th, without any authority to do so. I'd like an explanation, please. Seeing as we couldn't take it under the other recommendation, we can certainly take it under the work of the executive if they've called a meeting which they had not got the constitutional right to do so. I'd like an explanation.
Do you wish to respond to that, Councillor Cutmore?
I'm not sure what the member's talking about, sorry.
Well, I think Councillor Mrs Mason is referring back to the issue relating to the Chief Officer's Appointments Committee.
Shall I clarify for the leader that the executive made an arrangement, they notified certain people at their discretion, or someone's discretion, they've advised us through the managing director that the people, the group leaders were invited, asked about it, which apparently is a mistake, shall we say. Certainly doesn't appear to be true. But that meeting was arranged on the instruction of the executive. They've held a meeting, they've gone through a process, and as far as I can see, they had no power to do that. I'd like a full explanation.
May I, Chairman? Thank you, Chairman. I think I've already read out the agenda item that the member is talking about here, and exactly what came in front of us. There were no names on that. I understood that people were invited to that meeting and didn't actually attend it. So, you know, that's not for me to answer to. But this is the information that we were given by officers, and we were told it was formally agreed, and there was no problem in law, as we have been told again tonight. Thank you, Chairman.
If I can come back on that, I appreciate Councillor Cutmore is reading his agenda again, but certain people were invited. Other members of the council were not even acknowledged. There was no power for anyone to select 8 members for any reason and ask them to carry out a function without the power of full council. They had no right, as far as I can see, to do that, and that is not being clarified. Being on the agenda is not an excuse for the action.
Chairman, I'll repeat again, there were no names, groups or anything on the agenda that we saw. It was merely clarifying what I've already read out. Thank you, Chair.
Then would the leader, through the chair, would he like to explain how the people got invited? If there were no names, how come 8 people got invited and 31 didn't?
I'll say it again, Chairman. We were told this was a legal item that we could take forward. The process went through, and it does say the names that were actually constituted in the previous meeting. I think it says in 2018. So, you know, we've already gone through this, Chairman, and the motion's been passed. So we're really just going over old ground, and we can go round in the circles like this forever if you want.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Councillor Cutmore, but it seems to me that what is being said is that the members of the committee were the same as previously, and that they had been that had been properly constituted at that time, and it was therefore merely a repetition. Is that correct? So there.
Chairman, I just asked for our legal advisor to advise on that.
Chairman, sorry, apologies. Chairman, as I understand, group leaders were asked and were invited to put forward members for this committee. Where it says with regards comprising of the same membership, I believe that's with regards to the pro rata on the political element rather than the individual names. So I have been informed that group leaders were invited to put forward members to that committee.
Sorry, on a point of order, I really must intervene because that is absolutely not the case. I was never invited to put forward members. Received an email which was a fait accompli that the people named on that email were members of the committee, and that had already been decided. Thank you.
Councillor John Mason.
Chairman, thank you. Again, point of personal clarification. I have no intention at all of leaving this chamber with anything that is unclarified. Leader referred to certain members withdrew or did not attend the Chief Appointments Committee. I didn't attend that committee, Chairman, and because I intend to take this to the Local Government Ombudsman, the reason I did not attend is because it was not constitutionally enabled. It was enabled by the executive, which has no power. So therefore, I had no power and I had no wish to attend. Thank you, Chairman. That is a personal clarification which will appear.
Thank you.
Sorry, for personal clarification as well, I think Councillor Mason is right, and I think I have a right to personal clarification when I have been mentioned, not by name, but I did not attend for the same reason.
Councillor Mr. Hawkway.
Thank you, Chairman. It would seem that the issue that is being raised is a matter for which the leader of the council has actually stated that the executive made a decision to a recommendation for the creation of a appointments committee, and that is there's obviously sound reasons for that. But he then states, from reading from the agenda, that it was the executive that made the decision that the committee would be the same. The recommendation would be for the same membership as the previous one, and that is the issue: is the executive making that recommendation and putting that forward for a decision, which is the matter which does not seem to fit with the Constitution. It is for the members of the group leaders to put forward
I think we are going round and round in circles, aren't we? I think the decision has been made, and we are going to pass on. And if there are any issues to be raised, then these will have to be discussed outside the meeting. I'm going to continue now. Motions on notice, there's none. Item 13, the pay policy statement, and I'll ask Mr. Strutton to...
Chairman, simply I'm required to report the pay policy statement annually to Council. There's some minor amendments to salaries and so on relating to cost of living increases, and that's the pay policy. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Cutmore.
Chairman, yeah, this is a statutory note that has to come forward from Council, which is why it's come forward right now. As you can see, I think I can say that our pay policy and the grading structure that we have actually fits quite well in comparison to other councils locally, which have been criticised for their salary structure at the senior end. So I'm pleased to say that we don't actually come under that at all. And I think it follows through exactly where we want to be. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Hoy.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a nice, easy one, I think. Under 3.6, which I think was introduced last year, it's talking about market supplements, which are only payable within the planning and regeneration service. Can I confirm if we are actually paying that at all? Thank you.
Chairman, yes, we are. Yeah. The recruitment of planning officers remains a challenge for most local authorities in Essex, and therefore the market supplement is being paid at the moment.
Just Cost, has this been helpful in retaining staff? Thank you.
Chairman, I think so. We haven't been paying it for a great length of time, but I think the signs are looking quite positive at the moment in terms of the stability of the staff within the development management section in particular. So we'll just have to see how that looks over the next few months. But at the moment, the signs are looking very positive.
Okay, members, the recommendation is that Council resolves that the pay policy statement be adopted. All those in favour? Agreed. Agreed. Or anyone against? Good. That is adopted then. That being the last item on the agenda. Oh, I don't think I'm going to use that clock. I now close the meeting at 5 to 9. Thank you for attending.
Members, please be upstanding whilst the